All right, everyone, welcome back to Module 2 in the Advisors Academy. I'm Brad.
What's up, guys? Ryan Lee here.
Yeah, Ryan. So we're going to dive in today. We're just going to get right into it with the first of the 3M's. So this video is going to be the first, then we'll teach market, then we'll teach message, but we're going to focus on this idea of being the master. Now, we want to back up just 1 second again to remind you why we're doing this and not teaching you the actual tools and how to put an email campaign together and how to send it out and what to do with all that. All of that is important, but if your message is not on point, if that's not going to the right person and it's not framed the right way with you as the master, then none of those tools are going to make any difference at all. So we hope you spend the time and really absorb and go through and work through this, because Ryan and I, we ended up paying a pretty high price for this because we jumped into Russell Brunson's group and he asked us a question, said, okay, so who do you guys work with? And we sort of scratched our head and said, well, anybody with money. And then he said, oh, okay, so what do you help them do? And because I can build a spreadsheet for anything, I said, well, I can help them with anything. And he just sort of shook his head, and we didn't know why, and it took us a little while to figure out, like, with that mentality, we were helping exactly no one. And it took us almost a year to that first meeting to really feel like we had nailed down the master, the market, and the message. It took us a year because we didn't really, and it took us small periods over time to really buy in to putting the work in to flesh these out.
Yeah, and here's some validation on that too. So we invited some of our biggest clients, clients that have literally sent millions of dollars worth of premium in over the years. We invited some of our biggest clients out to Utah earlier this year, and we took them to the NCAA tournament, some of the games that were hosted here at the Vivint Center. And it was really interesting because Brad had a lot of clients that came in. I had a lot of clients that came in. Brad's clients had never actually met me. I've never met them and worked with them one-on-one. But Brad's clients came to me and they said, Ryan, I remember your story that you told about XYZ with your wife and XYZ with your family. And my clients did the same with Brad. They knew us, they resonated with us, and they did massive business with us, not because of the spreadsheets that we built, which were awesome, but because of our stories.
Yeah, exactly. And don't worry, like, if you're shy and you don't feel like you want to put yourself out there, don't worry, there's this new thing that was invented called you're only going to be internet famous.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to be a rock star in front of everybody in stages and like paparazzi, flashing cameras and stuff. That doesn't really exist, but with only a small internet following, you can be famous within what you're going to create here, but you could go to church and nobody would know you, or you go to the grocery store and nobody's even going to know what you do or how big of a deal you are. So that's what we're trying to help you become, is help you become internet famous so you make a whole bunch of money, but then you don't have to put up with the paparazzi.
Internet famous for 1,000 people.
Yeah, does that sound fair? Okay. So again, we're calling this, we renamed everything to Master Market Message just to help it resonate and be organized in a way that made a lot more sense for our business. Other people, Russell Brunson calls it the attractive character. Garrett White calls it finding your X factor. There's lots of different names for a very, very similar concept. But it starts out, we want to illustrate this as give examples of how this has been influential, because if you're an analytic like me, you might be tempted to think, well, I don't really resonate with attractive characters, it doesn't really matter, so I don't really believe that other people are. But like in movies, for example, if you've seen this movie, basically what they did to create this movie was let's get the 11 most popular actors and put them in a movie. And by default, they're pulling huge audiences to watch it. It took almost nothing from a cost standpoint to make this movie. It was a bunch of shots in hotels, like there wasn't a lot going on. But because you could find one of those actors that you really liked their stuff, you were likely going to go watch it. And it was so successful, what did they do? Well, they just copy-paste, right? And they did Ocean's 12. And then that went so well, what did they do again? They found another attractive character, brought him in, and they did Ocean's 13. Okay, so movies are based on this a lot of times too. A lot of people don't really follow what movie is coming out, but they figure out what movie their favorite actor is going to be in. And they don't even really care what it's about or what the ratings got. They're going to watch Russell Crowe or Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie or whoever. Okay? And this, but it's not just in movies. Another big example of this too is in food, right? So Subway found this guy. He was 300 pounds, ate nothing but Subway, lost all this weight, and then they realized they had an opportunity here to make him an attractive character. And the effect on the franchise of Subway, think about Subway versus like Quiznos. I don't think Subway's food is really any better. I think in a lot of cases it's worse than most places. But because people could resonate and connect with an attractive character, it had massive results for the company. So Subway found their Jared to be the attractive character. And think about like who even knows the owner of Subway, right? No one really does, but they know Jared. So they feel like they know the company. Okay? But you might ask yourself this question as you enter into this discussion of, all right, if I have to be an attractive character, if I have to put myself out there, you might ask yourself the question, well, what if I'm just ordinary, right? What if I don't have something out there? What if I'm only 21 and haven't really done anything, Caleb, and I'm just ordinary, right? Or what if I live in a small podunk town in the middle of Utah, Tim, and you feel like you're just ordinary, okay? That's okay to feel that way. I think all of us suffer at some point from this thing we called just me-itis. Okay, well, it's just me. Nobody's gonna care because it's just little old me. Okay, but there's a couple things we want to walk you through, thinking through getting yourself over that, because everybody, it sounds cheesy, but everybody in some way or another has a superpower. Okay, and if you want to try to find that superpower, think about, what did you specialize in? Okay, what do you have to offer and bring to this equation? Because we're all teaching effectively the same concept here, right? We're all helping clients in a very similar way, but what do you have that you can add to this movement or bring in that somebody else doesn't? Okay, or what are you so excited about that it borders on like a clinical condition that you need help with? Like when things wind down at your house and your wife like falls asleep and you're like, cool, what do you go look at? Like, what do you go do? Like for me, I really like cars and I watch YouTube videos on fast, expensive cars. And I know a lot about them. I haven't really figured out how to help me other than take money out of my pocket. But you get the idea, like what do you study or focus on or do to the point that you could really say you're an expert in it? And then mix that with your character, mix that with your message, mix that with what you're doing. Because you may not know it, but that thing to someone else is going to look like a superpower. And you'll know that you're onto something when someone else gets excited about it and you think, well, can't everybody do that? Like for me, when I joined Paradigm Life, I thought everybody thought in spreadsheets. Like I thought everybody, like I watched YouTube videos on how to program Excel for years. But I didn't know that I was the only one.
I didn't know they posted that stuff on YouTube.
There is. You can find it.
So here's the thing, guys. Behind all of this, what we're going to map out over the rest of this is the framework of your story. And your superpower is really your story. And every one of us have a story. Every one of us have that unique something special about us that brought us in front of a client. And that's really, as simple as that sounds, that's really what we're going to help you extract, is how what you do has changed your life, how what you do has made an impact, and what your story is what will resonate with people emotionally and bring them to do business with you. Not how good your product is, but how well crafted your story is and how people can relate to that.
Okay, and this all to me sounded good and flowery and nice, but how do we actually like scientifically put this into play? Okay, that's what is right here. Okay, we call this the attractive character. This is a handout Russell Brunson gave us. He said he spent at minimum $25,000 putting this together. The training that he went through to learn this and put it all together this way cost him $25,000, and we've seen at least that much benefit in it. So we'd hope you consider that this should be a format that you ought to follow to build and intentionally create your attractive character.
When we get once we've given you a few more of the elements of actually putting a webinar together, we'll actually send you a couple versions of the webinars that we've put together where we show you step by step how we've crafted our story along with the strategy that we teach.
Okay, so it starts out, we're going to talk about the elements of an attractive character, the different identities of attractive characters, and then the storylines that go along with them. And then we'll end with a couple rules to keep you sort of safe and in the right lane. And then that'll wrap up the discussion about attractive character. Okay. So first off, what makes a leader compelling? Okay. we can't have a boring leader. We have to have somebody that people want to follow. So the first thing that makes them compelling is a backstory. Okay, Ryan, what's this about?
So a backstory, we've got to understand the drama that brought someone to the present moment, right? Why are you in front of a client sharing what you share with the client? What was the backstory behind you that helped teach you, helped you learn the lessons and helped you become the person that you are today? In this movie here, Batman, Bruce Wayne, his parents were killed as a young child, and that shaped and molded everything that Bruce Wayne was and did after that. It's what turned him into Batman, right? And so it's the backstory that helps people understand and actually resonate with you as a leader, because they can realize and put themselves in your story and say, I'm right where you were at, and if you found a way out, then I want to follow you.
Yep. So you've got to think through, and when you guys shared everything on Facebook, most of you guys did this pretty naturally. You rewound the clock and said, I used to be here, and then I did this, and I did this, and I did this. So as we're thinking about this idea of backstory, we're going to create, I don't want to say create a backstory, but we're going to pick elements from our backstory that are going to be relevant to our objective, right? Because it doesn't matter that, I had my best friend in third grade was Reed, and he moved away, and I was like sad. That's probably not relevant, right? But the fact that I worked at Goldman Sachs and saw the meltdown of 2008 is probably a little bit more relevant, right? So it's picking the elements and creating this and putting it together to make you compelling to your audience, okay? And I want to back up. One thing I didn't share here is the reason that having an attractive character is important is what we're trying to teach you how to do is pierce into the marketplace and pull people to you. And the person that they're going to be pulled to is your attractive character. So you've got to create one that's going to be interesting to the people that you want to talk to. And Russell shares this when he first started teaching internet marketing. His advertisements and his character and the things he put together were to like startup people that were just trying to get in. And after doing that for a long time, he realized they were all broke and they all had a ton of problems, and they weren't the clients that he wanted to work with. So he had to shift and change his attractive character to bring in people that are now in his inner circle that pay him $25,000 a year. And a lot of that shift came from the attractive character. When he used to sell from stage, when he'd go back, he'd tell his wrestling stories, and then he'd go back to the back of the room, and there'd be a whole bunch of athletes that resonated with that, and those were the people that bought. And he started to hone in on this attractive character thing, and in one pitch, this was accidental that he talks about, but it came out that he and his wife had problems with fertility back before, and he told the story about this, and lo and behold, after he closed the room and went to the back, like 30% of the people back there were women that happened to resonate with that piece of his attractive character, and he pulled those people into his world. So we got to think about this, that if we're not intentional about our attractive character, we're not going to draw into us the clients that we want to be working with.
And guys, here's one thing too. Sometimes hitting our backstory is hard, right? When we think of a leader, we think of someone who's perfect, someone who doesn't have any flaws. But think of all the leaders that you follow. We follow people that do have flaws, that have overcome those flaws and have become the person that they are today. As we had the Decade in a Day call with a few of you, your backstory is 100% the thing that's holding you back, and 100% the thing that will actually propel you to be one of the most powerful leaders in this entire group.
But either way, you have to
embrace it.
And embrace it. That's a good word. Okay? So backstory is where it starts. Second is, if you're like me and you just try to teach in spreadsheets, you're not going to have all that much success. So you've got to figure out a way to teach in a way that's more absorbable, more understandable, and will stay with your client. And we call this teaching in parables.
So I don't know if this is the best example, but I'm going to share it here,
okay.
Right? In the last elections that just happened, people, the way we talk to people, that's actually how people will resonate with us. And Donald Trump actually speaks on a third grade level.
Yep.
Donald Trump speaks on a third grade level, which means he communicates with mass appeal to the American public. And it wasn't because he was up, preaching parables, but he was speaking in a way not to say, hey, I'm smarter than you, so he only appealed to a small demographic. He speaks on a third grade level, so he resonates with most people. And that's kind of what a parable is. It's making your message relatable, both in how you say it and how you teach a lesson through a story, teach a lesson through a principle, and it's the story that drives home the relevancy of the principle.
Okay. So we've got to be able to break our teaching down into parables. And one of the exercises we're going to have you do is go write a bunch of parables for what you teach people. And this is something Ryan and I were, before we knew about this concept, we were very diligent about. We would try to break things down, make it simple, make it understandable. And the whole idea behind a parable is you take something they know and connect it to something they don't know, and now they've got this bridge bringing this together and they now understand. Okay? So a leader you have to learn to teach this way. Okay? The third component to this is, like Ryan was talking about, we have to expose our character flaws. Okay? And I put this idea of Superman versus Batman up here because like Superman, he doesn't have, like Batman has all these character flaws, right? He had a troubled childhood. He's got anger issues. He's in the dark. Then he has this playboy second personality. Like the whole thing, you want him to win. But Superman, we can't even relate with because he's Superman, right? He's invincible, and he doesn't have character flaws. He's perfect. His hair is perfect. Like he lives a perfect life, and we almost can't really relate with him. So what we want to understand is if we're Batman and have a backstory, we'll have more people rooting for us than if we try to put ourselves out there as the invincible Superman. Okay? But even Superman, the only thing that makes him somewhat human is like no one would care about his story if Kryptonite didn't exist. Right? And Kryptonite at least makes it so he has a possibility of losing. But if you don't have the possibility of losing, if that never existed,
there's no drama.
Then your story doesn't matter. Like, hey, I've won at everything that I've ever done, and my life is perfect. Again, nobody cares about that backstory. Because we've got to be willing to bring into our backstory our character flaws.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to open up to that. Now, again, we talk real, raw, relevant, right? We've got to keep our character flaws relevant to the audience we're trying to attract. But nonetheless, we need to be willing to let those out.
So in some of my backstory, I'll talk about, times that I have made major mistakes in my financial, experience, right? Where my wife is crying in a hotel room because of what I've done. Or I've got a tenant who just shot a neighbor's cat with a gun. I mean, I'll tell these stories to help people understand that I didn't know what I was doing, and I figured it out through these experiences, and I can't tell you how many people actually relate some of those stories to me when I'm teaching them, and they say, oh man, is this kind of like the time that your wife was crying because you didn't know how to spend money on a vacation? And I say, yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about here.
That's right. So the last piece then of the elements that make a leader compelling is, come on computer, this guy.
Turn it off, man, we're done.
Love him or hate him, Dave Ramsey is a compelling leader, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. Dave Ramsey, I mean, he does not pull any punches. You know exactly where he stands, and when you come into Dave Ramsey's world, you either love him or you hate him. He will either praise you or he will call you an idiot.
Yep, and that's the thing. He's either attracting or pushing away, and this is what we call you have to be polar, okay? You cannot be everything to everyone, here, we'll just kind of share it this way. So it's kind of fuzzy. We couldn't get it sharper than this, but we need you to understand this thing we call the prolific index, okay? And the money to be made, there's right in the middle is mainstream thought that everybody else has. Then on either extreme, one way or another, there's crazy, okay? And there's no money in either of those three buckets. So just get that across. Like the absolutely weird, crazy, so someone was sharing this with me too. I guess there's a documentary, I never watched it, called Eat the Sun. And it's this Indian tribe that literally just stands there and that's how they eat. They don't eat food, they just, at least supposedly, they just eat the sun.
The documentary lasted for 3 days and then there was
there was nobody around. But so that is an example like totally crazy, right? Then there's mainstream that's like the 4 food groups. And if you try to train on the 4 food groups, are you going to be like wildly successful? No, because everybody already knows it and are going to pay you for that advice. But somewhere here in this prolific zone in the middle is this dude named Dave Asprey who says put yak butter in your coffee and drink it. Now, it's not mainstream, but it's not like totally weird and crazy. It's something you could see yourself doing. And that guy with Bulletproof Coffee makes millions of dollars because he sits in this prolific index.
Okay, and guys, this is 100% relevant to our business. We fight Wall Street. Wall Street is mainstream. Traditional finance is mainstream. However, what happens with a lot of people in our industry is they go all the way to the left or to the right to the crazy zone, right? And then these crazy people with these crazy spreadsheets talking about the Federal Reserve and all of these
spreadsheets have nothing to do with it.
rabbit hole issues, right? And whether they're true or not is irrelevant. They're not in a zone that anyone really, really cares about or that will even listen to. So your story, your persona needs to be somewhere in the middle. You cannot be mainstream, otherwise you're fighting brands like Wall Street. You cannot be crazy, otherwise, you've got one or two people that are following you and they're crazy too. You've got to be in the middle.
Yep, and this is this applies to your story. This applies to what you're teaching people. This applies to all of that. We've got to find this zone that you're just different enough, but not too far out there. Okay, so, but it's absolutely required, and you'll know that you're doing this right when you have just as many likes as you have like death threats coming in to your online stuff. You'll know you're starting to hit this when people start saying things like they hate you. Right? Then you have to be polar. You have to create that side, and it's difficult. It's tough. It's not fun to hear that people don't like you or that people think your stuff is crazy. But Brunson says this all the time. He says if you're not offending at least somebody by noon, you're not marketing hard enough. Okay, so you have to be comfortable and not just pissing off like theoretical people in Wall Street. Like, I don't care if Wall Street bankers hate me, but you're also going to have to piss off like the person that lives kitty corner from you. Like, you have to make real people not like you, and that way the other half of the real people really actually will. Does that make sense? Like, it's not just this theoretical. We're putting like the us versus them story of Wall Street versus us. Like, we're okay doing that, but real people are going to end up really not liking you, and you have to be okay with that. Okay? All right, so we've done elements, we've done identity, now we've got this idea of storylines. So, and again, think about movies. Every attractive character or every hero in the movie, their story is rolled out in a different format. Okay? Like, think of Disney movies. It's kind of crazy, though, as we started to pay attention to this. Like, every Disney movie is exactly the same script, just in a different fantasy land with different animals. But it's the exact same story over and over and over. Okay? Every guy movie from Die Hard, like that theme of movie, it's the exact same script. You just pull out a dude from New York City and put somebody in from London, and like you have the same thing. Okay? So there are these storylines that work. I don't know why, but like whether we're programmed for that or what, but they do work, and we need to understand that. And if you can find a storyline that makes your story work, then we need to be using those.
Okay, now we actually need to go to identity first, though,
we
right?
skipped. So pause that, come back to that when we do storylines. We're going to talk about identities. Okay, so now I'll give you my spiel on identities. So we have to identify with these characters, and they're going to fall into a group of how they're going to lead us. Okay, just like I was saying, every hero is rolled out with a different storyline. Every hero plays the hero in a different way. Okay, and there's four main ones here as we see. We're going to go through them. So the first one is there's this idea of the leader. Ryan, this is your dude here, so why don't you take leader?
All right, so I don't know if anyone here has watched Maximus here. This is the movie Gladiator. Probably came out, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And
has it been that long?
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. So Gladiator, when he came out, Gladiator was a leader no matter what situation he was in, right? So Maximus was the general of the Roman army, and he lived by a code. He lived by strength and honor, and his army followed him to the death, right? But he had some issues that happened with the emperor, and so then he became a gladiator, as kind of a slave, right? But in the slave world, he rose up as a leader there. And so there are people that are just natural born leaders that just have this strength, this purpose, this fire and passion to them, that no matter what circumstance of life that they're in, they're usually leading. Now, this isn't me. I can be a leader, but it takes a lot of effort and energy for me to step up and be a leader all of the time. And so this isn't really my persona as a leader, but if you are one of those people that just likes to lead, likes to be in charge, likes to drive, then this might be your persona. We're going to talk to you how to build this persona out in your story.
Okay, so leader is the first one. The second one is what we call the adventurer crusader type person. Okay, this is your Indiana Jones person, right? You follow Indiana Jones not because he got up and rallied your troops like Gladiator, like Braveheart, but because he's doing exciting things that are interesting and you want to follow, right? So kind of think about Indiana Jones. He's off to go get the Holy Grail. He's off to go get the thing in the whatever, the stone in the Temple of Doom, all those things. So you want to follow what he's doing just simply because of what he's up to. Okay, a modern day example of this is a guy like Richard Branson. Okay, he's a leader for sure, but he's not doing it the way Gladiator led. He's doing it in a way like he's like, we're going to the moon. Like, all right, cool. I want to see if this guy can do it. I'm on board with that, right? So he's pushing the envelope, or is that Elon Musk that's going to the moon?
Who knows?
Anyway, that idea.
Someone's
right,
going to the moon.
Is they're adventurers or they're crusaders. Okay. The next one is what we call the reporter or the evangelist. So take
Larry King.
Larry King, there's the name. Take Larry King, for example. Like, if you met him in the grocery store, you wouldn't know, like, what his superpower is. Like, what's he good at in his real life? Like, what does he do? Well, no one really knows, but what he's good at is he's good at interviewing other people and pulling stories out and connecting with them and putting them in front of audiences. So that was his superpower, and that's the role he played. I don't know if he's brave. I don't know if he's got any of these other attributes, but he's good at having a conversation, if you want to look at it that way. Right? And in modern day, if anybody knows who Mike Dillard is, this is how Mike Dillard built Elevation Group, which at its peak had 50,000 subscribers paying $50 a month. For him, get your calculators out, 50,000 people paying $50 a month, and all he released were a couple of podcasts and a couple of videos every month of him going out, finding the wealthy, the advisors for the wealthy, and then coming back and reporting that to his audience. That's how he built his whole company. Okay, so he played that role as, I'm going to go out and get this. So people that might not feel like they personally have done anything to be worthy of being followed, this is a great persona to take on, because you can say, hey, I'm going to go figure it all out. You stay home, do your jobs, do the things, take care of your kids. I'm going to go out and get this stuff and bring it back to you, or I'm going to report on it. Okay. And then the last one is the idea of what we call this reluctant hero. Okay, and Ryan, this probably mostly resonates with you. So, who's this?
So we got Frodo here, right? Frodo's got the furry feet, but Frodo had a ring, and his whole job, he didn't want to be. I can't remember the whole story of how this works.
But you're not a nerd. You don't know all this stuff?
I know he had a ring, and he had to take it to a mountain, and there were a lot of bad things that happened, and throw it in a cave or something.
That's pretty much a good summary of it.
It is. Right, but Frodo, he was really a reluctant hero. He did not want to lead. He didn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to lead this crusade to save humanity and all that stuff.
Third Earth or
whatever it is. But he did, right? He led a whole movement, a whole cause. In the world that we're bringing all of this marketing information to you from, it's Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson is a reluctant hero. He is a very shy person. You never would know it when you see his internet persona and his internet fame. But it takes a lot of effort and energy for him to get on stage and do what he does. He's a reluctant hero, but he has gold in his hands, and he feels compelled to share it with those people who he attracts that want that same gold. For me, this is what I resonate with, right? I don't wake up in the morning saying, how can I go out and lead, and how can I go out and find a bunch of people and have them follow me? I don't really like reporting either. I just like to live my life. But in the process of living my life, I've found some tools and some strategies that work. And so I feel like this is my persona, this is my story, and I've brought everything into this, creating this persona with my story. And the people that I resonate with are those people as well who want to follow that.
So we already blew this slide.
All right. Well, Brad, what's yours?
Yeah, so Ryan's identity is definitely the reluctant hero. I have to pull him out and say, dude, you need to tell people like that. That's not bragging. That's not, and that is good information that people need to know. We're drawing that out of Ryan. Mine is not the leader and it's not the reporter either. Mine's more the crusader, the adventurer, because I feel like I was on a quest to go find this thing, right? I was on it to prove what financial independence was, because of my experiences and my background. I like to prove it, I like to show it. So I said, I'm going to the moon, and anybody that wants to see what the result is, come along for the ride and we're going to go after it. So that's definitely the more the persona that I take on is I say, okay, here's what I think is right, I'm going to prove it to you, or that's wrong and I'm going to prove it to you, and we're going to go after this thing. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, so those are our personas. So part of the homework is going to be you taking some time to think through what your identity is going to be, and then again wrapping and molding your story so that you're highlighting those points. Because the truth is you're going to have elements of all of these, okay? But we're going to pick the one that either is going to attract the audience that you're after, or just the one that you are more naturally. Either way. but we'll start wrapping our story into that as part of the homework. Okay. Now to the last part that I already explained, the storylines. Let's just go through these really quick. They're pretty self-explanatory, and once you sort of have a list in front of you, it's pretty easy to look at them. But the first one there being loss and redemption. Okay, anybody that knows Michael Isom, this is his story, right? He had built this amazing company. Everything was great in 2006. Lost everything to the point where he was on the bathroom floor with a gun in his mouth, only to come back and be $1 million plus producer for 3 years in a row. So his story of losing it all, and then what he learned as he went back to gaining it all, is compelling. So he wraps his identity in that experience. Okay, the us versus them. This isn't like, again, Wall Street versus everybody else, but this is somebody that had no chance of success. This is kind of like Slumdog Millionaire type storyline, right? No possible chance for success, but somehow continues to win and win and win and overcome. And pretty soon you build this following of people that just are excited to see you win. Okay, then before and after, very easy. This is the whole weight loss idea, right? Before and after, this is what I was doing before. Now I'm able to do this. This is a good one that you can create. You can say, hi, I'm going to be the guinea pig. This is where I'm at right now. I'm going to apply all this stuff and see what the outcome looks like. So you almost build a case study around that.
That's how Tim Ferriss built his entire 4-hour work week. He was the case study on everything from sleeping to nutrition to exercising to meditation. He tried it all out and gave you before and afters. And then people resonated with that because they wanted to know what his story was and what his experience was. And if the after was good, they followed him.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example. The fourth one, amazing discovery. This is actually probably identifies most of your stories. Is you came across infinite banking, couldn't believe that nobody heard about this, started living to yourself, saw the results, and then felt compelled to share it with, now you got into the industry. So you discovered this thing that's amazing and you can't help but get out there and share it. Secret telling, if any of you followed Palm Beach Newsletter when they did their 770 account, that is the perfect example. Like it's this secret thing, but you got to sign up for a newsletter to get the information. Michael Isom also took this on when he wrote his book called What Would the Rockefellers Do? Right? It's this whole idea of secrecy, and I've got insider knowledge that I'm going to share with just a couple of you. So join on this webinar and we're going to talk about it. And then the last one, third-person testimonials. This one, you need to pick one of the 5, and some pieces of your story will have. Sometimes you'll tell it loss versus redemption, and sometimes you'll tell it secret telling. But the one that you cannot skip over, the one that is an absolute requirement to spend time figuring out, is getting third-person testimonials. In our industry, and the fact that we're doing this online, this is going to be an absolute requirement. Okay, and this is so much to the point where Ryan and I have now built in an automatic way that every single client, when we finish with them, they give us a testimonial. We want one that's how important it is that every single client gives us a testimonial, because that is going to sell it better than you doing it through any of these methods.
Because no matter what, we're trying to make us the leader, and we're trying to be identifiable, right? We're trying to say, okay, look, I'm here and I'm going to bring you along with me. But no matter how people look at it, they're going to look at you up on a mountain, right? And they're looking up to you when we position ourselves as a leader. And so the testimonial is really actually showing third-party proof that, hey, if this strategy works for not only Ryan, but for client A, B, C, and D, then it's got to work for me, right? And so and we're excited to share this part with you with the funnel. We're going to show you how we gain testimonials now. And now when we're working with clients, we just drip these testimonials out to them to say, hey, check out what this person said, check out what this person said. And engagement and conversion goes through the roof.
Yep. Okay. So those are all the different storylines as you think about the elements, the identity, and your storylines. These are the pieces. So there's going to be homework that takes you through and helps extract and get the momentum behind, tell your backstory, what parables can you use, character, philosophy, polarity, all the identities and the storylines. Okay. So you'll have those links are going to be live in the membership area for you to go through. That's going to be the big takeaway from this.
Yeah.
But before we're done, we want to share a couple of rules to making this be effective. Okay? And we're telling you to create a story here. And I don't remember where I heard it, but one of the best lines I had around this idea of being a good storyteller is they said, I think it was actually my grandfather who was a fantastic storyteller. We'd go on hikes and campfire chat type stuff. He was amazing at telling stories. And he'd share this. He'd say, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. Okay? Now, there's obviously danger in that because you could just manufacture stuff and embellish, but we do want you to understand that. Like in my story, I tell it very linearly, but the events didn't happen in that same exact order. Some things were happening at the same time. But the reason I ordered it that way, it was effective to learn a lesson, and as I look back at it, those are the orders that I had my epiphanies in. Even though the things were happening to me different, something happened to me and I didn't get a lesson from it. It wasn't until I had another experience that I realized, wait a minute, I learned this lesson a long time ago. And so to make it simpler for the client, I just switch the order and make it sound the way it should. Does that make sense? So, but to keep us safe, I guess, and to make sure that as we put this out there, we're effective, the first rule, and this is the absolutely most important of all of them, is you have to live the life your clients wish they could live. Okay, you have to, this is why reality TV is so big. This is why just the idea of gaming and movies and everything is so big. It gives somebody a chance to have hope or live an experience even though it's not happening to them yet. Okay.
Guys, and this is where all of your stories will come from, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you're not living the life that you want your clients to live, then guess what? You're selling something, right? Plain and simple. You're selling something that you're just looking off of what the fact sheet says, and these are all the benefits of this product or feature right here, and I'm going to sell that to you. But when you're living the life that your clients want to live, you're bringing relevancy to what you're selling because you're actually using it to achieve results and outcomes.
And every single one of you are here in this course because you see Ryan and I, to some degree or another, living a life that you want a part of, right? JD, I showed you my toes because I didn't have shoes on that day, and that was like, man, that's what I want to do.
That's not a part of the life I want to be part of, though.
Well, you are, whether you like it or not. But then there were other people on the call that don't care to stop doing all of that. They're still going to build a business, but they're going to pull in other aspects of what we're doing, okay? So you just need to live that from the standpoint of live what you're teaching. So for everybody that's doing, infinite banking or investing, you need to be doing those things, okay? You need to be teaching it from a position of leadership, okay? Now the second point, this is almost just as important, and I think that, so Ryan and I have been top closers in our industry really everywhere we've gone, but certainly in the industry that we've been in here. And there's one thing for me that really separates really, really good salesmen from others. There's lots of things, but for me it comes to this idea of absolute certainty. Okay, and we've got a friend of ours, his name is Satema. He's a big Polynesian dude. He's massive with tattoos, and he seems like he'll eat you for lunch. But really on the inside, he's a big teddy bear. But he taught us this concept that he says, confidence is for school kids. In the big boy world where we're at, you have to be more than confident, which means you have to be certain. You have to be willing, as the attractive character, to stand on your figurative stage, whatever that looks like, and be absolutely certain that what you are teaching is the truth, will help them, will move them forward, will have the result that you're purporting it to have. Okay? And this is all coming together, right? If you're not living it, you can't really stand up there with absolute certainty. If you don't have the right people in the room, if your message isn't clear, if you're not the character to lead them, then certainty becomes a very difficult thing to have. But as all these pieces come together, you can stand in that absolute certainty and say, I know that this is what you need to do. And that's how you're going to close. Okay? Nice. Sneezing. Anything else on that?
No.
Okay. Last couple are pretty easy. Like, don't be boring. Okay. Everybody knows the adage of like the camera adds 30 pounds, right? It doesn't for me for some reason, but if the camera adds 30 pounds, it's the same thing. Like, whatever level of energy you're operating at, the camera is going to knock 2 notches off of that. So you've got to go 2 notches above with expressions and voice inflection and all that just to come across as normal. Okay, so you've got to elevate that, and you've got to find a way to not be boring. Understand how to use persuasion. That's why you're in this course. That's why we're teaching these things. Is people, like the fact that you're in this course, you're in probably a group of like 2% of the world that are actually ambitious, that actually want results. Most people just want it given to them. Most people want hacks. Most people want shortcuts. I guess there's really nothing wrong with that, but at the end of the day, most people are not predisposed to action. And persuasion helps people to take the action that you know and they know that they should take. Okay? And then we need to care a lot. I think that goes without saying. And then on 6, we've always got to figure out how to be offering value. Value, just from being part of your community at whatever level that looks like.
We're going to talk a lot more about each one of these when we help you put everything together. But guys, here's one thing. This whole concept, for me, it was a really big revolution and evolution for me in my life. You know, the whole purpose of what we're doing, this kind of sums it all up, right? We learn something, whatever it is, and let's just bring it to the financial world. For me, when I went out and I set up my very first policy 10 years ago, I learned something new. As I set up that policy and I started to use it, I lived, right? I lived the experience of taking loans, using loans to buy real estate, figuring out how to manage all of this stuff. But there was a gap in between learning and what I wanted to accomplish. And as I lived it, I bridged that gap and I became a new and more capable person. As I lived it more consistently, right, I started to become a leader. There was another gap of saying, I had all these people coming to me saying, Ryan, what are you doing? Why aren't you putting money in a 401k and all of this other stuff that I used to be doing that I'm not anymore? But there was this new gap of how do I now start to lead my family, lead my people who are asking me of how I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's really what set me in the position that I'm in right now. But this is the evolution of everything we do in business and honestly everything we do in life. There's a gap that separates where we want to be from where we are now, right? And if you didn't have that gap, if you were able to just wake up one morning and do everything you wanted to do, there would be no such thing as progression or evolution in life. For you, for all of us, it's learn, bridge the gap, live, bridge the gap, lead. And once you lead, we gotta relearn all over again. Brad and I have been stressing out, pulling our hair out. How do we teach this concept to you guys? How do we take all the things that we've been doing and teach it in an organized fashion to you guys, right? And so we had to go back to learning again and now living a different set of principles of teaching how to be internet marketers to other financial advisors. So guys, this is the purpose of what we're doing here is we're helping you bridge the gap from where you are today to where you want to be. And as you do that, you're going to expand and become a new individual with better, stronger, more capabilities.
And if you talk about what we all really want out of our businesses and out of life, it's not money, it's not status, it's not prestige. It comes down to fulfillment, right? If we're successful but not fulfilled, like that's almost worse than never being successful at all, because we paid the price, but we didn't get the ultimate gift that we should have got from being successful. And for us, this learn, live, lead model really is the formula for being fulfilled. If we just learned stuff and never lived it, we would be stuck at a certain level. But then if we just live it and sit inside of our own game, we'll always miss that next gap into the idea of leading. And then as we lead, we will be pushed to a point where we will realize shortcomings, we'll realize oversights, and we need to go back and start the circle over with learning how to solve that, leading that so that we can then live it, okay? And then the last part to this, I know everything, so this never happened to me. No, I'm just kidding. I actually felt this all the time, which is surprising. We feel like we need to know everything before we can go teach. And it's called the imposter syndrome, again, back to sort of the just me-itis is, well, I don't know everything that somebody could possibly ask, so I can't lead. But if you've ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can, it wasn't in the movie, but it was in the book, where he actually went to a college university as a student. The teacher didn't show up, so he got up and started teaching. And he taught an entire semester of a high-level course at a university. And when they caught him, that's like, how did you do that? It's like, it was really easy. I just read one chapter ahead. And you need to realize that if you have a superpower and you found what that is, you are ready right now to start teaching and leading that. You don't have to go do a whole bunch more, okay? You can take on a persona or a story that allows you to be that person, okay? And you can lead from where you are right now, and then that learn, live, lead pattern will continue to push you forward so that you stay one chapter ahead of everybody that you're teaching.
Honestly, guys, this was what gave me permission. This whole principle right here, that I didn't have to be perfect, I didn't have to have it all figured out, I just needed to be one step ahead. And this is what gave me the confidence to start sharing, to start leading, to start putting out webinars, is knowing that I don't have it all figured out yet, but as I recognize what that gap is, I will get better and better and better at doing it, but I just have to be one step ahead. And guys, this changed everything for me, this one principle.
Okay, so this might sound cheesy, but the thing that holds us back a lot of times here is we feel like we need to be certified. We feel like we need a degree or initials or something. Like everybody's seeking the right to teach. Like I looked this up. It's insanity. To braid someone's hair in the state of Utah, you have to have 1,600 hours of training. 1,600 hours. That's like a full-time job for almost an entire year just to braid someone's hair. So this idea of you have to know everything, you have to be certified and rubber stamped and approved, it permeates us all the way to the point of braiding hair, okay? So in case you're suffering with this, congratulations, you are now certified to be a leader.
Boom.
Okay, there it is. Print this out, write your name on it, put it on the wall, we'll sign it. You are all now certified. We're waving our certified wand for you to go out and teach and lead from where you are right now. Okay? That feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah,
okay.
We're good.
All right. So that's the attractive character. Hopefully you're going to be ready to dive into the homework and start taking through this. Vox us with questions. Vox us with your thoughts. You can try some of this out on us. We can give you feedback. And then Friday, we're going to be getting together. We want everybody to be sharing what they learned, where they got stuck. If they're not sure which identity, we as a group can sort of help them with it. But there's going to be some homework that's going to build on each other, and you'll know what to bring with you on Friday. So just a couple final thoughts to wrap this up. Now you've got the tools to engineer your story to attract to you the clients that you want to work with. If you want to work with just anybody, then you don't need to do any of this, okay? But if you've got a target audience in mind, this is a requirement, which is why we're teaching it now rather than teaching you email tools and sequencing and ClickFunnels and websites and all that kind of stuff, because none of that will matter if you're attracting the wrong people.
Or nobody. If you're trying to attract everyone, you won't attract anyone. That's the whole problem. I mean, you have to punch a hole through the noise. You have to do that with your story, with you being the attractive character. And everything you do here will build upon everything on the back end. Your messages, the people that come through, ClickFunnels, the technology, all of that stuff. But it starts with you being certified to be a leader and identifying what makes you qualified to be a leader, right? What your story is, how that's relevant to your target audience, and how we craft that perfect message to pull people to you rather than you going out and trying to hunt them down.
Yep. And final thought number 2 is, like, being an accountant, the reason I got into accounting and loved it was everything balances. Like, that's the definition of accounting, is debits and credits, everything balances. And you always know whether you got the right answer. And that's a mental handicap now that I have, that I really hold myself back and saying, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? So here is, there's no answers in the back of the book, but here's sort of the answer in the back of the book that you'll know whether your attractive character is right. If you look at me and Ryan, we're not normally this high energy. We're both introverts. We go to networking events, give us like 11 minutes, and we're like, okay, we're checking out. We're going to the hotel. I want to read a book. So, but when we're in our attractive characters, our passion comes out. Our excitement and our energy really comes out. So you'll know that you've hit on this, that when you're in that element and telling that story and playing that role, your excitement is there. Your natural passion drives you to be that. Okay, so that's sort of hopefully a gauge for you guys that you'll know that you're doing it correctly, that if you're not having to manufacture that, but you just feel that passion coming out of you. Okay, so that's what we've got for you on this one. Next module, we're going master, so we're going into message next time. Now that we know who we want to attract and how we're going to do that, how do we craft our message so that it is in alignment with that attractive character? So that's up next.